AITA for upsetting my wife so she'll clean more? Okay, so I know the title makes it sound bad, but hear me out. This is a throwaway account. I, 28M, have been married to my wife Lindsay, 25F, for 2 years. We've been together for 7. Our marriage is great. Despite us both being busy with work, we still make time to go on dates and be intimate with each other whenever we can. I work in engineering and Lindsay is an RN, so I pay for most of the bills and utilities. We split the bills, but I pay for majority of the costs because I make more. Lindsay usually fully covers grocery costs and the Wi-Fi, which isn't much because it's just the two of us. I feel that since I make and spend more money, Lindsay should make up for that in housework. I'm not some traditional wife-desiring a-hole. I think it's great that she works and has goals for her career. I want her to. I feel like our chores are split fairly. It changes day by day depending on our schedules, but typically, Lindsay cooks our meals. She is much better than me. Trust me, you don't want me anywhere near a kitchen, but it's nothing fancy or requiring a lot of effort. She does the dishes and vacuums, but it's not daily. It's more like an as-needed basis. I take out the trash weekly and wash our cars about once a month. This has always seemed fair to me, but recently I've felt frustrated with her. I've been at my current job for 6 years and I've developed really great friendships in my time here. There's a few of us that always get together on break for lunch and whatnot. One of my coworkers, John, 35M, has been married to his wife, Claire, for about 10 years if my memory serves correctly. About a month ago John invited me and the rest of the gang plus our wives to have dinner at their house. Claire is a stay-at-home mom, so she handles everything at home while John works and brings home the bacon. I know this sounds bad, but I was jealous. Not because she's a stay-at-home mom, I don't want kids, but because John has a wife that actually puts effort into her food and cleaning. Their house was immaculate, completely spotless, no dishes left in the sink, little knick-knacks left out on countertops, nothing. I couldn't believe it. Claire set the table and waited on everyone. She was thoughtful and made sure everyone's glasses were always full and would ask if she could get us more food, etc. She made filet mignon with mashed potatoes and roasted vegetables on the side. It was amazing, and I can't remember the last time Lindsay put any effort into our meals. It's always something lazy like pasta, a lot of chicken-centered meals, tacos, quesadillas, everything requiring little to no effort. On the drive home, Lindsay made a comment about how Claire is an amazing cook and said she would like to have dinner with them again because they're great people. I agreed with her and said something along the lines of, "You could also be more adventurous with your meal choices so we can eat good at home too." She took offense to this and said she didn't realize her food was so bad. I said it wasn't, but it's nothing compared to Claire's because she puts no effort into it. She stopped talking to me and was pouting like a child. She went to bed without speaking to me that night. I ended up apologizing the next day when she got home and she forgave me. Fast forward a week later and I became more and more frustrated. She was working 12-hour shifts more than usual, and as a result, her housework suffered. She would leave at 7 a.m. and come home at 7 p.m., and on some nights she went straight to bed without making dinner. I ended up getting takeout on those nights. Dishes were piling up in the sink, the carpets were becoming noticeably dirty, and she just sat in bed scrolling on her phone or sleeping. I tried to be understanding at first, but at this point she's used to working 12-hour shifts, so there really is no excuse. I ended up having a talk with her and was brutally honest. I told her that I'm not satisfied with her level of housework anymore and I want her to do more. I want her to come home and make dinner, and I want her to put more effort into it. I gave her some examples of meals I would like to eat and suggestions for ways that she can clean before going to bed, such as drinking coffee or energy drinks on the way home. I thought she was receptive to my ideas at first, but then I realized she looked pissed. She very coldly asked me if I feel this way because of John's wife, and I answered honestly and said yes. I told her I would be embarrassed if my friends came over to have dinner with us after that dinner at John's. She started tearing up when I said this, and I felt kind of bad for being so harsh. She didn't say a word to me and just left the room. I came out a short while later and saw her maniacally scrubbing a stain out of the carpet on her hands and knees, still crying. I asked her what she was doing and she screamed, "What does it look like, you fucking a-hole?" The stain she was scrubbing was pretty much gone, but she continued for what felt like hours. I started feeling sorry for pushing her to that point, but then I remembered something. Something that could work out great for me or go horribly wrong. When she was in high school, she was Baker acted, I will not disclose details out of respect, and was in a psych ward. She told me she used to neglect herself when she felt really depressed, but after being in the ward, she obsessively cleans when she feels depressed or overwhelmed because of the habits they drilled into her. I almost felt like a DC villain because of the huge smirk that crept on my face. So, the next night she got home at 7 p.m. I told her I had something to confess to her and she looked petrified. I told her I was sorry, but I watched porn while she was at work because I was lonely. She ended up throwing up from crying so much, but just as I thought, she started cleaning. She washed all the dishes by hand instead of using the dishwasher. She dusted everything, every fan, every TV screen, every shelf. I didn't want it to be too obvious, so I started limiting this trick to 4x a week max. Skip to present day. I made a joke at lunch with my coworkers about how I trained my wife to love cleaning. Everyone was laughing and asked for the secret, so I said, all I have to do is make her cry and she can't wait to clean. Daniel asked me what I mean, and I told him about how her response to being upset is to clean, so I've been upsetting her on purpose. Everyone was silent while I was still laughing. Adam asked why in a very unamused tone. I spilled the beans about how Claire made me realize how unmotivated my wife is and I wish Lindsay was more like her. The rest of lunch was pretty awkward and I felt like I made everyone uncomfortable. I ended up texting John to ask if I did something wrong because he didn't come by my station before leaving like he usually does. He told me he felt really weird about the way I was treating my wife and idealizing his. He told me I was being an a-hole and emotionally abusing her, when I should just communicate. I argued against this because I did communicate. I told her exactly what I wanted from her and all she did was make excuses about being tired from work and needing sleep. She even suggested that I should clean more if the state of the house bothers me so much and that I should learn how to cook before criticizing her. We wouldn't be able to afford the house we live in if it weren't for me. The lifestyle we live is because of me, so why can't she just show appreciation by cleaning and cooking better meals? It's been 3 days now and I am now sitting alone at lunch. When I sit with my usual group, everyone stops talking. I feel like I really fucked up and want to make things right with my friends, but at the same time I feel like what I'm doing is okay because it's not for no reason. She's actually cleaning more and I'm so proud of her. Am I the a-hole because I want to keep doing it? Edit. I understand that I'm the a-hole now and no, this is not fake. Sorry to deprive you of that comfort. It's impossible not to recognize something is wrong with you when a good 80% of the comments are calling it fake or hoping it is. I understand now that I mentally abused my wife and I do want to fix it. Thank you to the 2 people who actually took the time to offer constructive feedback and advice. As much as I hate the thought, I am going to seek out a professional. It isn't possible for everyone to be wrong and I'm right, even though that's what my brain is telling me. I know something is wrong with me even though my brain is saying there isn't. Thank you all for helping me realize it. As per request, I will update in the future if there are any changes. Update. So, hi. It's been a while. I don't have a lot to say, but I was asked to update if I ever decided to try therapy and I did. I didn't like it. I dropped out of individual therapy after 2 sessions. My therapist was more interested in my childhood than giving me actual advice, but stuck with couples therapy. I tried, I really did. The therapist and my wife would gang up on me. The therapist changed my wife a lot. She went from being kind and soft-spoken to rude and brazen. She would snap on me for absolutely nothing and constantly bring up things I've done in the past to use against me in an argument to try and make me submit. Remember how my wife is an RN? Yeah, well, she was fucking cheating on me with some ugly cunt working the same shifts as her. She confessed to that in therapy and said if I could forgive her she could forgive all the things I've done. Nothing I have ever done has been close to this. I have never cheated. Vows mean nothing apparently. She also shared a lot of things she never told me, like her last grandparent passing away. In her words, he wouldn't care. Yes, I would have if she told me. She had no reason not to. I wouldn't have been so harsh about the housework if I knew she was grieving, but no, go ahead please, don't tell me anything and then use it against me later because that makes sense. I thought couple therapists were supposed to be neat URL. Isn't their entire purpose bringing couples together and helping them understand each other? Since when do they call their clients manipulative? How is that allowed? Anyways, back to the B*TCH wife. I can't forgive a cheater. She is staying with her parents for now as we are separated. I don't want her back in my house. It makes sense now why she didn't want to have sex anymore. We stopped going on dates. Our intimacy suffered. All because she cheated. Therapy was a waste of time and money, but I guess it was worth it in the end because I learned what kind of person she really is. She disgusts me. I did not want therapy, but I tried my best for her and to change. That is clearly not what she wanted because she cheated. I learned this information last month and I have finally come to terms with it. As for my friends, I'm still cool with a few of them, others clearly look down on me so I don't interact with them anymore, but we don't eat lunch together anymore. I sit elsewhere now and it's not too bad honestly. I'm meeting new people. Maybe I'll find love again soon, but who knows. My reputation at work in regards to personal matters is kind of shit now. Well, that's really it. Thank you for reading. Edit. Holy cow, why is this blowing up the next day? How are people even finding this with 0 upvotes? Anyways, I just need to clarify something. When I wrote this post I was speaking out of anger. I don't want to erase my words and rewrite something better. I said what I said and I'll own up to it. But what I will say is that is not how I feel on the inside. I don't think it's okay that she cheated on me when I was committed to couples counseling. However, I can admit that I'm the true evil here. Yes, you can argue her actions were a reaction to mine, but it doesn't seem fair considering she waited months to do so, if I'm believing her timeline of events. I do want to be better. I know I lack empathy and was cruel. I know I sounded like a jackass with how I wrote this. I shouldn't have written an update post in a blind rage, but I did. I can't change my past actions, but I can try to move forward to be a better human being. Anyways, I have made up my mind. I can forgive my wife. A user I engaged with yesterday shared their story with me and it really touched me. They could relate to me on some levels. I am taking what they said to heart. I need to be a better person before I do anything else regarding my wife. I did talk to her this morning. I called the same therapy office I went to before and scheduled an appointment for 2 weeks from now on Wednesday. I apologized profusely for the way I reacted to her being honest with me and for everything else I did in the past. A lot of users told me to look up battered woman syndrome and I did. It made me feel sick. I'm not expecting sympathy from anymore, nor do I want it. I know I don't deserve it. I deserve the ridicule and the hate. I won't get any better acting like a jackass to save face. Thank you to everyone who sent me mental health resources. I'm not going to hurt myself, but I appreciate the concern. I'm committed to being better and I appreciate everyone who saw the humanity in me. Thanks everyone. I'll reply to comments soon. I just got home from work. I was asked, so here's a timeline of her cheating. Assuming everything she said is the truth, here is what I know. She started cheating on me in March shortly after we started our sessions, but the flirting started long before that. She couldn't tell me a date but said it had gone on for weeks. She said it was nothing serious, but he initiated everything even knowing she was married. He is also a nurse, by the way. He would compliment her, buy her food, and touch her hair like she was a fucking pet. Nurses are required to have 2 30-minute lunch breaks if they work more than 10 hours in our state, and I don't think I need to say this, but she would spend them with him if they ever had the chance to break at the same time. They got to pick their break times at the start of their shift and would write the same time down. My wife said this wasn't very often though, because there were a lot of times she refused breaks and sign a waiver stating a break was offered and refused to continue whatever she was doing for work. She said nothing became physical until April when they had sex in the car that I bought for her, 2024 Porsche 718 Cayman in all black, before coming home. She said she felt extremely guilty and dirty afterwards and that she regretted it, but slept with him on 3 additional occasions after this. I asked if he knew she was married and she said yes. I asked why he didn't care and she said she would vent about the things I was doing to her to him and he just wanted to help. By fucking her apparently, because that's a great help. She told me the flowers she brought home every single day for Nurse Appreciation Week, May 6th to May 12th, were from him. Every single day that week all were from him, and I would ask who got her those. She would lie out of her ass and say patients some days. One day it was her boss, the next it was physicians, never a coworker. I believed it because who wouldn't? This is what she told me in the session and swore it was just physical and there were no emotions behind it, but after what the comments were saying and typing this out, I don't think that's true. She told me he made her feel pretty again even though I never insulted her appearance and I still complimented her, and he made her feel special. She told me she would cease all contact with him outside of work because it's not possible for them to never interact again at work. That's when she begged for forgiveness and told me she could forgive my actions if I could forgive hers, and I told her to keep fucking him for all I care and left. She assured me it was physical with no emotional connection and said that they both agreed to it being just sex, but after recounting all her lies, I don't know if this is true. Probably not. I haven't thought much about the details of this, but now I'm feeling conflicted with my emotions once again. She told me the last time they slept together was a week before our last session, which was the last week in May, so the last time she cheated was in the 3rd week of May. Not sure how much of this is true now that I'm reflecting on it. I accepted in my mind that she fucked someone else, but is that really all? She said he made her feel pretty and special and that she liked the attention from him. Sounds more than just physical. I don't know anymore. I might ask her, but not now. I'm too enraged. Update 2. How can I move on from this? How can I learn to trust her again? Hey everyone. I'm struggling a lot right now. My wife and I have been together for 7 years, married for 2. Recently, I found out she was cheating on me with a coworker since April. It started off with flirting until it progressed to a physical affair. She assured me it was only physical with no emotions attached, but when I reflect on what she has told me, it does not seem like it was purely sex. She told me he made her feel special and beautiful, implying she hasn't felt that way with me. She never told me she was feeling this way. She confessed to her affair in our last session of couples counseling. She told me she could forgive my past mistakes if I could forgive her infidelity. It seems like an unfair ultimatum. I can't lie and say I've been the best person. I did some horrible things before her affair, if her timeline was accurate. I unknowingly was taking advantage of her mental health and making it worse. We have been separated since she told me about the affair. She's been staying at her parents' house while I'm still in our home. It's been rough. Sometimes I wake up and in my sleepy days, I reach out to stroke her hair and feel a sharp pain in my chest when I become conscious and realize she's not there, and I remember the harsh reality of the situation. She has never done anything to break my trust in the past. I did some stupid things too. Not cheating, but I wasn't a good husband recently. It's my biggest regret in life. I go back and forth between feeling like I'll never be able to trust her again or forgive her, and then wanting to tell her to come home, that I love her more than anything, that I don't care what she's done and I just want her here in my arms. She told me she blocked the man she cheated with me, told me she would not communicate with him anymore outside of work. They work in the same hospital, so it's not realistic that they'll never cross paths. They would flirt at work, so it really would be a matter of blind faith. What can I do in this situation? How can we rebuild trust from here, and how can I cope with knowing she'll see him at work every day? Any advice will be extremely appreciated. Update 3. I desperately need tips and advice only. I feel like I'm going crazy. Even though we're currently separated due to the affair, the reality is really hitting me that she sees this guy every single day at work. She promised to cut all contact with him but told me realistically, there are times she will have to interact with him at work even if she doesn't want to. I do want to forgive her and fix our marriage, but my heart is pounding. I don't want to be told to leave her. I just need advice, please. Edit, my wife is an RN working at a hospital. Edit 2, thanks for the advice everyone. I'm going to talk to her tomorrow and tell her she either relocates to a different hospital plus continues marriage counseling with me, or we can't work things out. Update 4. My thoughts and goodbye. This may be the last post I ever make, and I want to explain my thoughts and plan of action as accurately as I can without being an asshat in the comment sections. I am also here to clarify certain misunderstandings among other things. I'm not sure if anyone will read this because of how long it is, but it's here. Regarding my posts on the infidelity subs, when I learned she cheated on me, I did not want to work things out. I felt like the marriage was over at that point because she cheated, which to me shows that she wanted something other than me. I told her I wanted to separate, and I offered to rent an apartment while she stays in the house. I would continue paying the bills, and she opted to stay with her parents while I stay in our house. Her parents are well off, and they are supporting her financially. She continued to contact me daily, even when I wouldn't respond. I told her our marriage was over when she cheated, and asked what the point in going to marriage counseling was if she was going to actively cheat on me. She apologized profusely and continued to assert that she wants to save our marriage and that it's worth it to her and should be worth it to me, because we've had an amazing 7 years besides these past 5 months of hell, and if she can forgive me for the stunt I pulled, her words, I can forgive her for seeking outside pleasure. With that being said, this is why I sought advice strictly regarding the infidelity and how to move forward and trust your partner when they are working with the person they cheated with. I didn't ask how to hurt her and get revenge, nor was I interested in comments telling me to do so. Someone did mention reporting the affair to HR, and I asked, would they both be fired for that? I asked because I wanted to know. I don't want her to be fired from her job. That would permanently stain her record, making it harder to find employment, not to mention humiliate her, and she's not the one I would want to be punished, it's him, so I wouldn't do anything like that. The advice I found helpful is to ask her if she's willing to relocate. She said she would do anything if it means I would be open to saving our marriage again. What I want is for us to continue seeing a marriage counselor, and let her pick if we continue with the same counselor because she opened up a lot with her, or meet with someone new, and for her to relocate, because I feel sick knowing they still work together. I think we should continue living separate for the time being until we seriously make progress in therapy, and until I have been in individual therapy for some time, given I'm making good progress. If she seriously wants to move forward after everything that's happened, my action and hers included, those are my terms. She has also agreed that I need to continue individual counseling, but I have not asked about relocation yet. Many commenters have said I'm trying to have full financial control of my victim to keep her trapped. I don't want her to be jobless. If it came down to her being jobless versus still working at the same hospital, I would accept her continuing to work. I wouldn't want her to quit her job until she has another one lined up and secured. She is not in my control nor dependent on me. She is with her parents who are supporting her financially, and she can afford to live on her own if she wanted or needed to. She makes $130,000 annually, which is great money. I just make more, $215,000, which is why I paid for most of our bills. I have stated this several times, but everyone still says the same thing like it's fact, when it is seriously so far from the truth. My wife has always been an independent woman. I understand that abuse can make people feel weak and like they need to depend on that person, and we have talked about this. She said that she doesn't need me, she wants me. She assured me she doesn't feel like this is Stockholm Syndrome or like she is trauma bonded to me, and this is her rational decision knowing the full truth behind everything I did. I don't want her to be so traumatized she is staying with me because she feels like she has to, which is why we talked for hours about this and why she wants to stay. She told me she could live without me if she had to, but that she doesn't want to. The situation I posted about was the only time I have ever acted that way and had thoughts like that. How do I know this is true when I couldn't realize something evil I was doing was okay, and a mean-spirited prank at best, you may ask? I wondered the same thing. I felt panic trying to search my mental library and think about any time I've ever done something like this or hurt her intentionally, and I couldn't think of anything. That alone was not proof enough. We discussed this extensively in therapy, and our therapist was the one who initiated it. Our therapist asked her to recount other times when I exhibited abusive behavior in the 7 years we've been together. She didn't say abusive when asking. This was majority of our 1-hour session, and the therapist was asking her about certain traits and almost like a checklist of actions/behaviors that meet the criteria for abuse. She said there were none, which is why it affected her so deeply. She couldn't understand where this came from because I've never treated her like that, and I felt the same way. She felt confused because she didn't know what she did wrong and what happened to me to make me hurt her like that. She even compared me to people that have TBI and do a complete 180. I have not been abusing her for years like many commenters are saying, and I am not just saying it myself. Me clarifying the timeline is not my attempt to justify anything or skirt responsibility. Abuse is abuse, and abusing her for a few weeks versus a few years doesn't matter because she should have never been abused by me in the first place. What I did was egregious. My wife is intelligent and she knows the full scale of my actions. I was very honest and shared more than what was in the post. I am scared of myself and how I wanted to and was able to intentionally traumatize my wife through emotional abuse, weaponizing her mental health and trauma against her without seeing it's wrong. I don't want to be that person ever again, which is why I am actively taking steps to improve myself. I may not have made enough progress for you, but I am on the right track. I have so much work I need to do on myself before we can truly work on our marriage. Recognizing my behavior and seeking treatment is a lot better than not accepting it and wanting to keep doing it. When I made comments about how I've made progress, I was referring to marriage counseling. I clearly did not make progress in individual therapy because I quit after feeling uncomfortable. In marriage counseling, we examined and challenged a lot of my beliefs. I also want to reiterate that I have never in my life done something like this, and it was only a few weeks, less than a month in the 84+ months we've been together. This is not me saying I am better now or that I've made a large amount of progress, nor do I believe I deserve praise. I have an extremely long way to go. Even though I have never done this before, what I did was insanely abusive and I need to find out why and work through that. I was able to look my wife in my face while she cried and not feel a shred of empathy because I was getting something I wanted out of it. Me not recognizing the true effects and severity of my actions in the moment while seeing exactly what was happening to her is what raises a huge flag for me. It is scary to be honest. I've seen a lot of comments calling me a sociopath, and on another subreddit where this was reposted there were a lot of therapists that responded. I read what all of them had to say, and they also had the same consensus. A lot of people still thought this was rage bait because no one can be that dense, and they talked about clients they've had that are just like me that are narcissistic sociopaths, and it scared me even more. I looked up sociopathy, which is ASPD, and it's pretty in line with how I acted and my mindset. I've always had trouble relating to the emotions of others and truly empathizing with them even though I've tried. I do care about others. I care about my wife way more than I've ever cared about anyone else, more than my own family, and I have always thought I cared about her feelings. I always did, until it came to her mental health being used for my benefit. I could not have possibly cared about her feelings in that moment if I was able to look at her in a traumatized state and think, good, she's cleaning. It's psychotic. It came from a place of envy and feeling like I was competing, and she was the competitor versus what I viewed as competition, Claire. We talked extensively about how I view household chores and finances, and I have a different view on it now. I should have been doing more housework than her because I was home a lot more. The amount of money one is making should nothing to do with how housework is split. I don't like failing, which is why I never bothered to learn how to cook after my disaster pieces. If we eventually live together again and keep working on our marriage, that will change. A commenter had a wonderful idea regarding this and shared that learning how to cook meals together would be perfect for bonding. The expectations I had of her weren't fair to her at all. Even before Claire, she still should not have done most of the cleaning, dishwashing, and all of the cooking. She never expressed feeling overwhelmed by it and needing me to do more, and thinking reflectively, it might be because she's determined to be independent and wants to do everything herself. She doesn't like asking for help from others, which is why she shouldn't have asked. I should have done it. We also defined my definition of abuse, and our therapist compared it to current research. I have learned a lot about abuse as a whole, and individual types of abuse. I abused her. I emotionally and psychologically abused my wife. There's no justification for that, there's no excuse, and there's nothing that can make that better. Looking back on my childhood, I've always lacked empathy for others and found it hard to understand why people were crying and would be upset by certain experiences. This was never addressed in childhood and it carried into my adult life. I have an appointment set up for individual therapy with the same therapist I saw for 2 sessions. I didn't give her a proper chance because I had false expectations of what therapy was, and I was panicked when it felt like she was making vulnerable. I am ready now. My childhood needs to be explored. I've learned that the way I react is a defense mechanism. When I feel attacked, I become condescending and have an inflated ego, which leads to me insulting others. This is something I learned in therapy and am trying to work on. I can handle criticism a lot better, but when I'm insulted, and for the comments specifically, when someone states their opinions that are wrong as a fact, saying I only want therapy to gain tactics to abuse my wife, for example, or the financial control debacle, I go full defense mode. I also became angry and defensive when I was told I'm not trying, my efforts aren't genuine, and that I'm going to continue to abuse her. I'm going to go back to therapy for myself. I need to, and I want to be a better person. I never want to treat anyone this way again, especially my wife. I don't know what went so horribly wrong with me. Even if my wife decides to leave me in the time it takes me to work on myself, I will respect her decision and continue treatment for myself. There are not enough words in the English dictionary to accurately describe how heinous and cruel my behavior was. I was extremely abusive, and the way I used her trauma response as a tool to manipulate her into doing something so insignificant and unnecessary, cleaning, is incredibly disturbing. Me having the thought to do something like this in the first place was already disturbing. Me doing this once was extremely disturbing. Me seeing what this was doing to my wife and feeling proud of it, thinking I was clever, is sick. Continuing to do this for weeks at the expense of my wife's mental health, without even recognizing it as something that is actually costing her, is egregiously disgusting. It is bottom of the barrel, despicable evil. I know this, and my wife knows it as well. She has torn me a new one, and she has every right to, and she deserves to do that and more to me whenever she needs to. Honestly, I think she could She'llCIean me, and she would be justified to do so. With the help of our therapist, she described how deeply I truly hurt her. How I ripped open closed wounds only to make them bleed more than they have before. She explained how I made her question reality, and how she wished she was in a nightmare and would wake up soon. She started seeing me as the evil twin of her husband. She explained how I became a stranger to her, someone she didn't recognize, and how it was conflicting. I saw her experience raw, unfiltered emotions. She told me that what I did is unforgivable and it's worse than anything she has ever been through, because I used the trauma response of everything she has been through against her, for the sake of trying to morph her into another woman. When she was explaining how I made her feel about herself, I cried a little bit. I don't think I have cried since I was 5 years old. I did something despicable, and there's nothing that can atone for that. She deserves more than me, but she wants me, so I will continue working on myself and identifying harmful belief systems in order to change them. I will explore my childhood with my therapist and learn more about empathy, and if that's something I can develop more of. I will be fully honest in therapy about my thoughts and actions so I can be held accountable and accurately receive guidance in order to understand and change my behavior. Even if I am uncomfortable, even if I am vulnerable, and even if I feel attacked in therapy, I will do my best to retain an open mind. I will never quit, I will never run away, and I will never give up on becoming a better person. This is my promise to myself and to my wife. I only talked about negative things in a very aggressive way, to the point where commenters accused me of not liking my wife, so I'd like to share some things about her. My wife is the most precious human to ever grace the earth with her existence. She is kind, generous, patient, understanding, and loves helping others. Before she became an RN, she loved volunteering at animal shelters and reading with the elderly at nursing homes. My wife is a huge animal lover, and she treats them like they are human babies, which I find adorable. I have always admired her selflessness and her passion for her interests and goals in life. She is an avid book reader, when she has the time, which sadly isn't much anymore, and time I have robbed her of in my selfishness, a coffee addict, and a gardener. She loves to go on nature walks and explore the outside world. Her face lights up and she experiences childlike joy when she finds a pretty rock or a pretty leaf. If I ever stumbled across one, I would give it to her. She would protect the leaves like they were the essence of life themselves, and she still has them on her shelves in our work/study room. My wife is hilarious, and she makes corny dad jokes that make her laugh harder than anyone else. She is beautiful inside and out, and if souls had a color hers would be gold. She is extremely supportive and is my inspiration to work hard in life. I have always wanted to provide for her and give her everything she could ever dream of and more. I was always thinking in terms of grandiosity, overlooking what truly brings her the most joy in life, the little things. My wife is not materialistic. She likes thrift shopping and antiques. She is very passionate about our environment, and I forgot to mention this, but my wife is the person that likes to clean up trash off the beach. We would do this anytime we went. She loves to watch the sea turtles hatch and crawl back into the ocean. Anyways, I always thought that my value was my money. I didn't think that of her, only myself. She sees a different me that I can't see. I've always had a strong urge to protect her from everything in this life, with how precious and fragile she is, and it makes me even more sick that what she needed protection from was me. She wants to heal our inner children together. I don't know what she sees in me that makes what I have done worth working through. She is beautiful, smart, and the kind of girl you would interact with for 2 seconds in a grocery store and remember her forever, regretting that you didn't try to get her number. I deeply appreciate everyone I have interacted with. So many of you have provided me with invaluable information and insight to myself. I even appreciate those of you that tiered me a new one, because I deserve no pity, no sympathy, no understanding. The only person deserving of that is my wife. I deserve the hatred, the insults, and divine punishment. I'm sorry to everyone that was triggered by my posts, I'm sorry to the people that have cried reading my posts, and most of all I will always be deeply sorry, regretful, and ashamed of how I abused my wife. I handled myself horribly and my bruised ego controlled me. This is goodbye for now. The only post I will ever make in the future is an update if I am diagnosed. A lot of users suspect I have NPD or ASPD. I still want to read everyone's comments because they took the time out of their day to say something to me, regardless of what it is.